My subject this morning is working with others. I don't even like the word work, if you want to know the truth. I think it gives me a bad feeling. I think to be allowed to share this program or your experience, strength, and hope with another human being in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous is a privilege. I don't think it's a chore. I don't think you have to work at it. I got these two guys, one on my right and one on my left. The only reason I have them up here is because they're tall. I want to show Tim that you don't have to be a basketball player to be tall. These guys didn't do anything but get loaded. That's all they ever did, for Christ's sake. But there are a number of people that I've been given the privilege to work with who and that's just exactly what it is. Because, you see, I've always figured that the program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous is some type of an unearned gift from this God I discovered sitting here. I think the ability to, or the opportunity to participate in any avenue at Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm allowed to participate in, I think it's a privilege. It's not a chore for me. Sometimes it gets long and tedious, but it's really not a chore. It's just, because Alcoholics Anonymous to me is a blessing, because I'm not one of those people who've been restored to anything, because everything in my life is because of the byproduct of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because there's a man sitting here in the front row that I met 47 years ago come November the 4th, and we've been long and loving friends ever since that. And he packed the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in a package that I would have probably died and went to hell for. And he is still, in my opinion, one of the greatest members of Alcoholics Anonymous in the Southern California area. And the reason I tell you that, because he won't remember it 5 minutes from after I say it. This man came up to me a few years ago, about 10 years ago, and he said, the doctor says I'm starting to get a little Alzheimer's. I said, hell, I told you that's 15 years ago, for Christ's sake. But that's basically what it's all about. Our 12 steps says that having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics. And the message, I suppose, that Bill was trying to talk to us about in his book is not where we came from or how bad we were or how much money we had or what kind of pitfalls we ran into. I think Bill was really trying to explain to us that what we're supposed to carry in Alcoholics Anonymous is because of our application of these actions that he put down on in a book for us to read, that is what we're supposed to be carrying to the alcoholic who still suffers. Because my old sponsor, Norm Alpe, used to say it better than anybody I've ever heard say it in my life. He said, what you are speaks so loud I can't hear a word you say. And I think the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the message that I'm supposed to carry will speak for itself in my actions. You know, and Tim last night was talking about action is love and love is action. And it's just really basically truthful in Alcoholics Anonymous. Never anywhere in the world has it ever been any more truthful than for people like us who are caught in the grip of a life and death situation. And my particular case is this nagging in my soul that's always been there before I ever found out what was wrong with me was a longing and a search for something. And I didn't know what it was I was searching for because I didn't have a very good idea what was wrong with me. And I think a lot of times today in Alcoholics Anonymous, we get so caught up in a lot of things that we seemingly forget that everybody who comes to Alcoholics Anonymous does not know what's wrong with them. I mean, I didn't have a clue what was wrong with me on the 4th day of November 1959 when I ran into Harvey. I didn't understand what he was doing. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand why anybody would get up on a Sunday morning and drive 100 miles up those old back roads. There weren't many freeways in those days. There was no money for the treatment of alcoholism, so those people hadn't surfaced yet from the dark corners of the world, wherever they come from. And it was just, so I didn't know what was going on. You know, I mean, I didn't figure them out. I thought, you know, I'd been sitting in county jails and penitentiaries and watched little thin blue-lipped people come and see me for years and years and years. all they were trying to tell me, they kept telling me what I have to do, what you have to do, what you have to do, what you have to. Psychiatrists told me that, therapists told me that, you know, lawyers told me that, judges told me that. My mother even brought a preacher one time to tell me that. But I didn't understand what was wrong with me, so I don't know what to do. They're talking about not drinking. That's what they're talking about. These people say, if you don't do these things, you won't be in these jackpots. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand it, didn't comprehend, because I wasn't doing it, and I was crazy. I didn't understand what was going on. Every time somebody tried to talk to me about doing better, I'm as physically sober as I am right now, and I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand anything at all because I didn't know the nature of my illness. I didn't know the dilemma that I was in. Well, I knew I was in a lot of trouble. I'd always known I was always in trouble anyhow. But I didn't know the nature of my dilemma. I didn't know that I was in a grip of an illness that was going to kill me or drive me insane or put me in jail. I didn't know that. I was in jail. So the other two didn't make much sense to me. You know, I've been pronounced dead on arrival in the Los Angeles County Jail. You know, and there was a psychiatrist in San Quentin that told me that I was clinically insane. So what's the big deal? I've died, I've been insane, and I'm locked up. Big deal. What's next? Yeah. And what next with me was getting out, getting a connection, and starting the rat race all over again. I never knew anything any better in my life. And then these people from Alcoholics Anonymous come wandering into this thing on a Sunday morning, and I moved and sit in the back row, full of contempt prior to investigation, because that was nothing new to me. I was a hateful, self-centered, self-serving egotist anyhow, so it didn't make much sense to me. Arrogance was just about 2 notches below where I was when I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. And they had this thing about them. And that is what I have been trying to generate within my own life for the last almost 47 years of my life. Not so much a message about what I was like and what happened to me, what I'm trying to be like today, but I'm trying to project some type of a I don't know what you call it, an aura, what do you want to call it, some type of a thing that would be attractive enough to an alcoholic to talk to me about something, to ask me, what is it, what do you have, what is this, what's happened to you, you know what I mean? Why do you feel happy all the time? Why are you kind of light in your step? Why do you kind of have this joyousness about you? What is this about you? What is this air you seem to have that no matter what's coming down the path, you seem to say, oh, okay, you just go to another meeting. Well, that's what these people had. That's what I want. And sadly, being a human being, I'm not able to perpetuate that all the time, because I'm just a basic human being. I live in a world that I really don't understand. I live in a world most of the time that I really don't ever feel a part of. I live in a world where I have to, go out there and try to practice these principles in the best of my ability that you have taught me how to behave here, so I have to go out there and do that. And then the blessing of it all is I get to pass it on to whoever will be there to take it and to receive it. And it's not work, really. I mean, I don't, I work for a living, you know what I mean? And sometimes that's a chore. Sometimes getting up and going to work is a chore. But my home group on Monday night, I have never seen a Monday night football game. I never have. I mean, they started Monday night football a long time after we started our Monday night meeting. I don't know. I just, it's not, oh God, the Chargers are playing the 49ers tonight. They won't miss me. Maybe I can get sick. Well, I don't know. It's never a thought. I mean, I just go get in the car. And, for a long, long time, somebody that I've sponsored or somebody that close to me will come by and pick me up and drive me to a meeting. And I'll sit in my seat, and I'll listen to the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and listen to the music of Alcoholics Anonymous. And somehow or other, no matter what the day holds or what the week ahead of me holds in front of me, somehow or other something has happened to me. You see, one of my big things today, and it has been for quite a while, and I don't know where it came from, because you're really not supposed to be judging anything, but well, you better join some other type of program if you don't need a bunch of judges, for Christ's sake. But my sponsor, Norm Alpe, when he was alive and he first got a hold of me, gave me instructions, very profound instructions, that I followed reluctantly and very cautiously, because I didn't think they had anything to do with what was wrong with me. The first one was, get a job. And he said, you're a bum. I told him, I'm not a bum. He said, what are you? I said, I'm a member of AA. He says, you're an AA bum. Bums don't work. And it went on from there. I mean, I couldn't drive a car because I didn't have a driver's license. He wouldn't let me drive a car. I used to have to call him and beg him to ride to meetings. And it went on and on and on and on and on. Now, 40 some odd years later, I believe that still holds true today for the people I sponsor. See, I can't stand here and profess to tell you that I have gotten anything out of Alcoholics Anonymous, this great joy that I've got out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then not expect the people that I sponsor to do the same things I did when I was new. There'd be only one of two things wrong with that. Either I didn't get anything out of Alcoholics Anonymous, or I don't give a damn care about any of these people that I sponsor. I don't care for them. I'm just trying to rack up numbers so my ego will be built up high enough to say, I sponsor 35 guys. I sponsor so many people, blah, 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 blah. Some of the things that just, that's you? I was going to have you order an 8-ball for me. It was just, I figured if you're going to go, I'm going with you, baby. I know your history. We'd make money. That's the trouble when you got guys on both sides of you to sponsor, and they're sitting there looking at you, but they don't care about Ron. He's just staying sober. One of the great things about Ron is that Ron came to me a few years ago and he asked me to be a sponsor, and so we got busy in the recovery program called Alcoholics Anonymous, which is really the steps. And we were involved in a fellowship already, but so we got involved in this fellowship, and Ron brought with him about a little thing. It had 7 questions on it. And so we got in our car, and I picked him up at Spire's Restaurant, wasn't it, on Rosecrans in the 605. Ron got in the car, got out the 7 questions. Before I got on the freeway, which is right there, he'd answer all 7 questions. I was going all the way up to Altadena to talk at a meeting. It was a very quiet ride, up and back. And when Ron got out of the car, he said, that wasn't much of an inventory, was it? And I said, not hardly, Ron. You see, because I didn't do that, I wrote an inventory out of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, a thing called a 4-column inventory. And so anything else, according to that, is foreign to me. Anything about that for me to try to pass on to somebody that I sponsor is very deadly as far as I'm concerned, because the only thing I really know about success in Alcoholics Anonymous is my own story. I know what I was like, and I know what happened to me. I know what I'm trying to be like today. And I know, without a shadow of a doubt, because I still engage in most of them, the actions I took to bring that about. Now, if I have got these great blessings bestowed on me, why wouldn't I want to pass it on to these guys? Why would I want them to have this thing? No matter whether they want to fight about it, drag about it, whatever they want to do, why wouldn't I want to pass this great thing on to them? I'm not saying anything else is wrong. I'm telling you the only thing I know about is what's happened to me. I know the things that I did. I know the actions that I took. I knew how my sponsor touched me. I knew my sponsor was the best friend that I've ever had in my life. Although it didn't seem like at the time, I thought he just hated me from time to time. I thought, don't you have anybody else to pick on, for Christ's sake? He says, you're enough. And I don't need any more. I mean, it was amazing to me. Every time I saw him, he said, you need a haircut. I just got a haircut. He said, but you need another haircut. I said, I'm not going to go to your Navy barber for a damned haircut. He just laughed and smiled and giggled and put another drop of snuff in his mouth and go on about his business. But it's an amazing thing to me, working with others. How do you do that? What kind of example that you're trying to set? What is it? What kind of arrogance are you trying to portray in Alcoholics Anonymous because you've been sober for a period of time? What kind of air of arrogance do you have when you walk around meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't have anything. And one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life, I saw it a week ago Monday in my home group when we had election for secretary. And the reason I got Ron up here, he was elected secretary. I thought he might let me read or something during the year. I'm just trying to get a little juice. I don't know how you are, but if you're an old-timer in your home group, nobody ever wants you to do anything. You know, you sit there and wave at people and try to get the secretary's attention. They just wave back and go and do whatever they want to do anyhow, for God's sake. But, God, I forgot what I was going to say, Ron. I got to thinking about what you were going to let me do this year. Just maybe put the chairs away. Oh. Harvey, you're casting a spell on me. I just think, I don't know, between you and Karen, it may be catching, for Christ's sake. But anyhow, Norm Alpey to me was, well, he didn't do much, but he did everything. And he told me one time, he said, you're a handful. And I said, I don't want to be a handful. He said, what do you want to be? And I said, I just want to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, Norm. He said, you already are a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, but you've got to act and you've got to behave and set out an example that maybe somebody will want Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, Tuesday night, last Tuesday, I have all my guys over at Dan's house, and we go through a step in our 12 and 12, and we discuss it, and we have pizza and stuff. It's a monthly thing, and it's one of the highlights of my month. And these guys sit around and do all this and cut each other up. And you really want to see some viciousness, you ought to have all your guys in one room and watch them go at one another. Jesus. But it's in a loving way. And we have our token Barbara, which is a girl. And as I got home when I got home that night, Karen said, you had a couple phone calls. And I said, from who? She said, he said he was your golf coach. I thought, oh God, I didn't miss a tea time, did I? Something really important, you know what I mean? And she said, well, I don't know, he sounded like he was drunk. And so I said, oh, and, she said, well, aren't you going to call him? And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. She said, aren't you going to call him? And I thought about it and thought about it. And just to keep her quiet, I picked up the phone and called the guy. And he started slobbering on the phone. He was drunk. And he's going on and on and on. Now, here's the story. I took lessons when I first started playing golf almost 40 years ago from this guy's father. And when I belonged to a country club, I played golf with this man when he was a young man, one of the junior champions in Southern California. And a couple of years ago, I went back and took a series of lessons from him. And I watched him for a period of time. I watched him bloat up from alcohol and get all swollen up and see him sweating there early in the morning and all that kind of stuff. I have not one time in the 30-some-odd years that I knew that man ever mentioned that I was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've never told him that I was sober. I never did anything. I just hit golf balls and talked to him and pleasant. And a few months ago, when I was having trouble with my back, somebody gave me a book, and he was having trouble with his back, and I went down and bought him one of them books, pain-free, and gave it to him. And here it is, a man picked up a telephone call, and he said, so-and-so called me and said that when I called him and I was in trouble, he said, I got a DUI and I'm in trouble, and so-and-so said that you're a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and you help people. And I said, yeah, what can I do for you, Steve? And he said, I'm in trouble. And I said, I talked to him for a few minutes, and I said, I'll be by and have a cup of coffee with you next morning. And I went over and sat down with the man and laid out a series of actions for him to take. The actions that I take, and the actions that the people I sponsor take, and the people who have gone before me, and the actions my sponsor takes, and the actions my sponsor before my sponsor took. And I laid out this program of action with him, and that's all I can do. But just think what would have happened 30 years, 35 years ago, or all during the period of time I've known this man, if I'd have been so arrogant and sprouting off about Alcoholics Anonymous and an arrogant, backward kind of a jerk that you see that happens when some people who get all caught up in their own magnificence in Alcoholics Anonymous, if that was his impression of Alcoholics Anonymous, he may have died drunk and never come here. And I think about that all the time. I think what my sponsor, Norm, says, it rings through my head most of the time, particularly when I'm talking to a newcomer or I'm given the privilege of doing anything in Alcoholics Anonymous. I think about that thing that he said to me, what you are speaks so loud I can't hear a word you say. Our book has a tremendous way of putting it. It says that you cannot transmit something you don't have. And I believe that what you're supposed to be transmitting here and what you're supposed to be trying to get back to people in Alcoholics Anonymous is not some dialogue about how bad you were, or how many penitentiaries you were in, or how much dope you used, or how much alcohol you drank, or how many people you hurt, or how much money you stole, or how low you went. I think you're supposed to try to tell them what you were like and what happened to you and what you're trying to be like today. And the secret, Jesus. Oh, you're taking snuff. I was really going to chew you out. My grandbaby's sitting there, pull out a thing. When you're blind, you can't see to the front row anyhow, but you see movement down there somewhere. But anyhow, that to me is what Alcoholics Anonymous is really all about. Really, I know lots of times I'm caught up in my own magnificence and my arrogance because I'm given a lot of great opportunities and a lot of great privileges to do it in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm allowed a lot of things that happen to me in Alcoholics Anonymous that don't happen to a lot of people in AA. And on the surface, it looked like a lot of trapping. It looked like a lot of big things. It looked like a lot of wonderful things to do. It looked like blah, blah, blah. It's just another job in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just another privilege that you're allowed to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. My great blessing is to be allowed to go sit on the third Tuesday of every month with all my guys in a room eating pizza. Now that's my great blessing. And going through one step of our 12 and 12 and listening to them comment about it and sitting there listening to the thing that goes on and listening to the happy talk that goes on amongst these guys, that's my deal. I feel better when I get in the car with that guy I sponsor and go home that night. I just feel like, all is right in the world. And it's not because of anything that I did. It's because I see the great legacy that was given to me being passed on and passed on and passed on and passed on. It's the most amazing thing that I know of this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. What would happen, I suppose, if we just stopped doing this, or we got into our head that we have figured out a better way to do our sobriety than what we have already? What if we figured out that there's some other avenue of recovery we have in Alcoholics Anonymous? And I see it happening all the time. I see people in Alcoholics Anonymous, and Danny and I were talking about it at dinner Friday night. I turned around one day sitting in a penitentiary and realized that I wasn't looking for anything anymore. That everything there was for me, I've already found everything I wanted. I've got it all. I've got everything that I ever could possibly need. I have some type of a peacefulness and a contentment within me most of the time that is really hard to describe to somebody who doesn't have it. I've watched people in Alcoholics Anonymous always looking for something else, always looking for another step on the step ladder, or always looking for another avenue to get to, or some other height to get here. And you know, my sponsor said, he said, the highest you ever get in Alcoholics Anonymous is sober anyhow. And I just always think of when I sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought like a newcomer all my life. I think like a newcomer. I think, as I said in some meetings, I think, Jesus, if I was a newcomer, I'd never come back to this meeting again. If I was a newcomer and that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has to offer after a period of time, there's not much for me here because I'm already there. I've already got that. See, my sponsor, because of his actions that he imposed his will upon me, taught me better than that. He taught me that I am nothing more good, bad, or indifferent than an example that Alcoholics Anonymous works. That no matter what's coming down the pike, my message in Alcoholics Anonymous is not to stand here and badmouth all the bad things that are happening to me at this moment, but to tell you that I live an awful good life. I'm recovering from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body called alcoholism. It's just the most amazing thing that I know of. I don't know why in God's world that I was ever allowed to practice this program of recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't believe it's because I'm anything special. I don't believe that God reached down in that penitentiary that day and out of 48 people sitting in the meeting said, you're going to get it. You other 47 people aren't going to get it. I don't know why that is, but I do know it's not because I'm anything special in God's eyes. I do know it. I just believe that it was my time. I just believe that it was my moment, and I guess everybody who's talked this weekend has said about it, is that moment of clarity. I don't know about any moment of clarity. I just think that these people that came to me week after week, month after month in that penitentiary where I was sitting, did something and showed something to me that was just absolutely something I had never seen before. And the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, in my opinion, has only one purpose in life, is to create some type of an identity. That's all Alcoholics Anonymous really has anyhow, is to create some type of identity. The book says if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, if you want what we have. In my opinion, a lot of people come to Alcoholics Anonymous and don't want a damn thing we got, if you want to know the truth, because they're not willing to do the things it says to do here. I mean, it takes time, it takes sacrifice, it takes ego deflation at depth. It takes an awful lot. It takes an awful lot to practice these principles a day at a time in your life over a long period of time. Because you get bored, you get tired, you get complacent, you get egotistical, you get all these kind of things. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. And the thing that brings me back is when I got a newcomer in the car. The most amazing thing, just keep passing it on. What do I pass on? I pass on what was passed on to me. If I'm not trying to carry this message on the way it was given to me, what I'm really doing in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm saying Norm Alpy never lived. Or Norm Alpy was a joke. I'm saying my Papa Chuck Chamberlain was a joke. I'm saying that what my sponsor Clancy does is a joke. I'm saying all that kind of stuff, and all the people who went before me, Bill Wilson who wrote the book, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob who put this thing together, I'm saying that's all a joke and it's a bunch of malarkey. I have got a better way to do it. What kind of an ego would that take to think I could possibly improve on the greatest tool for recovery in the world that has ever been known before to man, that has changed more lives in the years it's been in publication than all the combined therapy in the history of the world? What kind of an ego would it take for me to think that I have to improve on this magnificent program of recovery? Well, I've got a monumental ego, I know that. But I haven't got one that could dream that up. I have never, ever, my ego may be monumental to the extreme, but it's not so big that I think I can improve on what they put down in this book. Not at all. And my ego is not so monumental that I think that I have to improve on what that magnificent man, Norm Alpe, gave me when I was new. That's the message. If that's working with others, then so be it. You can play on words all you want. I don't think it's working with others. I love the people I sponsor. I really do. I like to watch them with all their little quirks and their little backward things and their flip-flops and all the stuff that they do. I want to be there for their tragedies as well as their joys. I really do. I want to be with them in all things because they were with me. You were with me through all these trials and tribulations. It's an amazing thing. When I hear the word work, I think back to when my Papa Chuck told me one time. He just giggled when he said that. He said, here are the steps we took. He always spelled it out. T-double-O-K, took. He said, there's suggested steps. He said, yeah. He said, suggested, if you want to live or die, you better take them. He's an amazing man. I remember one time, I always like to remember my arrogance flaring up in my sobriety. You know, I really do. I mean, it keeps me level sometimes, and it makes me feel bad sometimes when I have to talk about it. But I remember I was getting pretty full of myself. You know what I mean? I was starting to talk a little bit, and I'm starting to travel a little bit, and I'm becoming one of the AA talkers. You know, just you know how you get. You know. All you talk about when that stage is where you're talking. Well, I was talking over here, there, and I'm going to talk over there tomorrow, and oh yeah, I'm going back out there tomorrow, next week, and blah 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 blah. Tell a newcomer that. Yeah, you may be going to New York this week, but where in the hell are you going to be on Monday? Oh, I may be tired from that trip. I remember I was going somewhere. I was with Chuck, and I've always been trying to impress him all my life. I love that old man. He was the only father I've ever known. And we were in Santa Maria at a meeting. He was talking. I was riding up there with him. And I'd been trying to tell him things. I'd say things to him. I'd hear him say things, and I'd mimic him. I'd say things like, "The truth is the most powerful weapon on the face of the earth." And he'd say, "That's not the way I said it." I said, "Yeah." Or he'd say, I said, "You said that." He said, "No, this is the way it's. The truth is the most powerful thing upon the face of the earth." Okay, Pop. Next time I'll say it right. Well, it got so after a while I wouldn't say anything to it. I'd just sit there. Yep. Nope. Okay, bye. Love you, good. Bye, good night. But there's a thing for arrogance in Alcoholics Anonymous, or the arrogance of the alcoholic. And one night I was at a literature table. A literature table sometimes is bad for arrogant alcoholics because they can read into the literature whatever it is that boosts up their ego a little bit. So I got this pamphlet, and I held it dearly to my heart because I was going to prove him wrong. And we're going down the road, and we're somewhere between Santa Barbara and Santa Maria in the car. And I said, "Papa, I want to read you something." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Why we were chosen." And I'm really in my own little deal. I'm chosen now. You know what I'm saying? I know I am chosen. I talked at the Southern California Convention, and I'm really arriving, but I just. And he said, "What makes you think we're chosen?" I said, "It said right here in that pamphlet." And he said, "We're not chosen." I said, "What do you mean we're not chosen?" He said, "Johnny, we're all God's kids. If I'm one, you're one. And if you're not, I'm not." And he said things to me like, "He makes the rain to fall on the just as well as the unjust." And in my arrogance, because I want to debate my Papa, I say to him, "Then how come I'm sober? If I'm not special, if I'm not chosen, how come I'm sober?" And he said, "That's because you've come to understand you're one of God's kids and you act like it." I said, "What do God's kids act like anyhow?" He said, "Oh, They just try to help God's kids get things done, and they do it for free, and they do it for fun. What a novel concept. What a novel But isn't that what Alcoholics Anonymous is really all about? Isn't that really why we pick up a telephone and get a 12-step call from the other side? Isn't that really why we get in a car and spend all day long driving to some far places to talk to 15 people who don't want to listen? Is that why? Maybe that's why we go to a Lano Club, or we wouldn't drink a cup of coffee in there. Maybe that's why we go sit in a hospital room with somebody because they're going through difficulty. Isn't that why we go look at somebody when their children are being born in the hospital? Isn't that why we pick up their children and hug them next to us and become their godfather? Isn't that why we do these things? What's the payoff here? What's the big payoff in Alcoholics Anonymous? Is it money, property, and prestige? Is it owning the business? Is it having a big house on the hill? Is it having a big automobile? What's the payoff here? What's the accolades, the pats on the back, how wonderful you are? That don't do anything but boost up your ego. And the human ego is never satisfied anyhow. The more you give me my ego, the more I want. So what's the payoff? Well, this is what my papa said, and I don't know a better authority in the world than this, before, since, or ever after. He says the payoff in Alcoholics Anonymous is not so much that you're sober and you live this good life. The payoff in Alcoholics Anonymous is when you watch it happen to somebody else. Now here's the catch in that, though. It has had to happen to you before you can recognize it happening to anybody else. You have to be able to look in the eyes and see the man come from the land of the living dead to the land of the living, and you have to know what transpired and what type of actions that have taken place to do that. See, it happened to me, and so I pass it on. And when it happens to somebody that I pass it on to, and it doesn't even have to be to somebody that I pass it on to. It can be somebody that you sponsor that I see happening to them. It can happen to somebody that I see you working with that it happens to them. It's the most amazing thing in life that I can get my eyes off of me long enough to see this magnificent thing. A lot of people call it miraculous. And it is almost miraculous. But it's a gift from God. That transformation when that person walks into the room, dead, hanging out, and not knowing what's going on, full of bewilderment and lostness and loneliness and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden you see this person standing in a greeting line, making coffee, sweeping floors, picking up chairs, doing things, reading from podiums, cleaning up and looking good, coming to meetings looking like they're trying to present some type of a package for the newcomer. When you see those kind of things and they've happened to you, what happens to a guy like me is I think Alcoholics Anonymous is doing just fine. AA is doing just fine. So when I go to these places when none of those things are happening, it won't bother me so much because I go see you and see them happening to you and the people you sponsor. So I think Alcoholics Anonymous is doing it fine. And the reason I want Alcoholics Anonymous to do real good is not because of me. Not really. I mean, it's because of my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and my godchildren. Maybe they'll need Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe they'll have to come here. I don't know whether they will or not. I don't know whether your children will ever have to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I tell you, I hope they never have to. I hope they never have to come and sit in these meetings. And it's not that I don't want them to have what we have here, this joy and camaraderie and this wonderful thing that happens. Not at all. I just don't want them to have to go through the hell that we have to go through to get here. To bring about that point of surrender when you can say to yourself, okay, Spons, what's next? When I hear that from a newcomer, I think, God, it's coming. That's good. What do I do next? Not, yeah, but. Do you know what yeah, but is? It's the mating cry of the asshole. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm no authority or counselor or an authority on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, really. I'm just an example that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous works. That's all. Because I haven't been anywhere in the last 47 years but meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I haven't studied any other literature in Alcoholics Anonymous other than our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I haven't tried to carry this message to anybody that I know of except to Alcoholics Anonymous. If it falls somewhere else, fine and dandy. I don't do anything but go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and stick my hand out and try to help people. I've got a little routine that I do on Monday nights. I walk through the greeting line. I just walk it because I'm the founder of the group. I don't have to stand in the greeting line. I just walk through it. But I'll tell you, to look in the eyes of those people standing in the greeting, then I only do it. I do it at the back door and the front door. And to see the eyes of the newcomers in that meeting, to see the magic that happens to them in that meeting that I go to and I'm a part of. If you haven't experienced that, maybe you should. Maybe you should find out what the magic, mysterious thing of Alcoholics Anonymous is really all about. It's very simple to me. It's one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic to get them to take actions that they really don't believe in. So maybe someday, somewhere down the line, they can pass it on to somebody else, so that somebody else can pass it on to somebody else, so that somebody else can pass it on to somebody else, so that somebody can pass it on to somebody else. We said in one of the marathon meetings yesterday, there was 5 generations of sponsorship sitting in a little thing there. 5 generations in a little meeting, in a little marathon meeting. I'm not going to tell you what Peter said, because Peter's cruel. But I will tell you what Peter said. As most of you know, my sponsor just had a little thing done to his heart, stents in his heart. And we were sitting there in this marathon meeting, and 5 of them, and we were talking about how Chuck Chamberlain used to be the last marathon meeting, and Clancy was the next to the last marathon meeting, and I was the next marathon meeting. And now Chuck has died, and Clancy's moved up, and I've moved up. And Peter said to him, 1 more degree of blockages, we'd moved up another notch. Jesus. I tell you, I don't get the well ones. I want to thank Larry for allowing me to do this. I want to thank the committee of the Southern California Convention for allowing me to do this and to put up with my nonsense year after year after year after year. This is my 45th Southern California Convention. 45th. My first one was in San Diego. My sponsor, Norm Alpe, was the program chairman. This was his message to me. Jackass, you're reading the 5th chapter at the 10 o'clock hospital institutional meeting, Friday night. But Norm, I can't afford to come down to San Diego and stay all weekend. He said, I didn't ask you to stay all weekend. He says, I just told you to show up here and read the 5th chapter at 10 o'clock. Okay. Drove down here. And of course, it was easy. I wasn't working too steady in those days. And I did the 5th chapter. He never said, good job, thank you. None of that stuff. He just patted me on the back and said, okay, go home. Like a little dog going home. But that's Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what it's all about. And now I see people, I hear people that I sponsor, I can't afford to go down there for the weekend. I said, but you have a commitment, go down there and do it. You know, if you can't afford to come to the Southern California Convention, start putting $1 a week away. Put $5 a week away. Save it, because it is a big event. It's the oldest convention in Southern California. It's been going on for 55 years. There's a legacy here from all the people who've come. I've known all the chairmen of all 55 years. Some of them were dead when I got here. I can't say that about them now. They're dropping like flies. Hang in there, Harv. I love you. I love you, Shirley. Thank you for asking me, and I'll be back. And if you'll all stand, I'll close you out with the Lord's Prayer.
Are you done?